Welcome to Truly Heal and this PEMF expert training, which doesn't mean you need to be a medical expert. We just want to give you the expertise that when you use such a device or when you want to inquire one, that you have all the information that is necessary to make an informed decision and to use it in the most appropriate and the most quality way so that you have the effects that you need. So what we've done is we created a series of 3 videos. Now in the first one we'll talk about what is PEMF, PEMF versus EMF, dirty electricity. Then we look at nature's PEMF and effects on you. This is a very important part to understand where we actually get the information from. And then we look at different devices, the power and intensity, and the ringer and oscillating PEMF devices so that you know which one does what. And after that, we'll go in video number 2 into healing with PEMF, best practices, dangers, what can go wrong, all the things that can cause you serious problems and how to avoid them. Then we'll talk about pain management with PEMF and then the main fundamental functions that PEMF brings: detoxification, oxygenation, nutrification, and cell activation, like boosting your immune system. So these are then the fundamentals that will give you an overview how you can use it in the best way. And then in the next video we'll translate that into disease. You know, PEMF and immune stimulation, PEMF and inflammation, wound healing, depression, cancer, osteoporosis, sleep, incontinence. We've covered many of the different areas that will give you a very clear indication on how you can use this device for your particular disease in the most effective way. And we've added some little videos in between that showcase exactly how you can do that. And then I'll cover in the end which device is best for you. And there is a big difference. If you're an acupuncturist, you want a different device than if you deal people with cancer, if you have a buzzing practice. So we'll talk about the different devices and then the 5 ways how to make money with PEMF. And that's relevant for everybody. You can earn a lot of money with PEMF, and how to do that and how to set it up and how to organize it is what I'll speak here. And then we have question and answers. And you can submit your questions and you can submit your answers. I'll submit the answers to you so that we really build up a database here that nothing is left out. And after that, when you are qualified as an expert, PEMF expert, then we'll give you a discount. And the concept is pretty simple. If we educate you about PEMF in this way, and we really answer all of your questions in this preliminary state, then we don't need sales reps, we don't need people that explain you everything over and over again. You actually have all the information at once, and I can give you what a sales rep would actually earn as a discount. And that's a huge effect. So you can save a lot of money by going through this training and then purchase your own device with a discounted rate. And that's in the end because I want you to see all of this beforehand and know that you really got it. All right. Now, first of all, who am I? And that's kind of, everybody should know, but many of you don't. It's very simple. I'm Marcus Freudenmann. I've been researching alternative health now since over 15 years. We had the website Max Awareness Proprietary Limited, and that was like really a huge collection of interviews. And then once we noticed how valuable they are, once they're put into context, we traveled for 3 years around the world, made the documentary Cancer is Curable Now, and written the book Healing Cancer with Common Sense. And it really just all melted together into online education programs. We changed the name to Truly Heal, and then developed a whole sequence of online education programs, of workbooks and apps and evaluation programs and online education programs and coaching certification for health coaches. So our focus has always been in the medical field, and we've worked and studied with the best experts from around the world, put all that information together. And one of the factors that we noticed is that PEMF is used in all of the clinics, in all of the doctors with the best success rates have PEMF. And when they explained it to us, what it does and how they make use of it, we had to take that up as a full-on education program for you, and that's what I'm going to share. And that starts with, what is PEMF? It actually is something very normal, natural. It's the ground frequency that comes from the earth. When you look at the inner core, it's a metal core, and then you have different layers of magma, which is hot molten rock and metal, all in a constant flow. And we all know that when you take two metals and rub them together, you have actually a magnetic field. They become magnetic. You can rub a screwdriver on your shirt and then go down into a tight little spot, and all of a sudden the screw clings onto the screwdriver and you can pull it out. Now we know that through friction we create with metal a magnetic field which attracts. Now in this earth, and you can imagine this is huge, it's creating a magnetic field which is very, very big. And just to enlarge that very clearly, it makes a huge magnetic field. And whether you are directly on the earth or you are flying in an airplane in the outer atmosphere, it's actually no difference. That is so big, it extends miles into the universe, that there is always a magnetic attraction. Now when the astronauts were flying out and they were outside the magnetic field, going to the moon or circling outside the stratosphere in the earth, they got very sick. Their immune system collapsed, their blood clotted together, they had very deteriorated health conditions, and that was because they were outside the magnetic field. As soon as they got back into Earth, they recovered. And that's how it was actually detected that these ground rumbling magnetic fields are crucial for our health. And they start at 0 hertz and they go all the way up to about 40 hertz, 50 hertz in some spikes, and up to 60 hertz in natural fields where you have a lot of volcanic activity. So let's say the range is from 0 to 40, and that's what PEMF is, pulse electromagnetic frequency. We use those very low frequencies to pulse in a magnetic field into the body. Now, as soon as we move into EMF, which is dirty electricity, electromagnetic frequencies, that's man-made. You know, it starts with power lines, computers, all the way up to microwaves, and that's actually destructive. If you use a Rife machine, you use these frequencies here with 30, 40,000 hertz to destroy pathogens, to destroy cells, to destroy bacteria and cancer cells, because they are very vulnerable. So these are man-made and can be dangerous. These are earth-made and very, very healing and healthy. Same. Here we have the sunlight with the infrared, ultraviolet and visible spectrum, and they're very healthy to a certain degree. If you stay out too long, you can burn and you can cause damage. So they are already on the finer spectrum and therefore a little bit more to be cautious about, but very important. Without light you die. And then we have the cosmic rays and gamma rays and medical x-rays, which are then again very, very dangerous and very unhealthy. So that's why we mark those in orange and red, or orange, and these ones as well. And the yellow ones are the natural ones that we need in order to survive. But, and this is something that was found out, BBC was publishing from the science editor David Whitehouse, that dinosaurs walked the earth, the planet's magnetic field was 3 times stronger than today. And that made us look back. And when you look at the magnetic field 1600, it's a lot stronger than it is today. It's cooling off. And I think it has to do with the cooling off the earth, and the crust is getting thicker. And therefore there is not that much magma or volcanic activity as when the dinosaurs lived. And that's why it's cooling down. And you can see the spots are moving. We had it in 1600. We had the lowest field here in the Philippines and Bali, and then down in South Africa. And now it's slipped over, it's moved over, and now it's in South America, whereas the yellow spots are hot spots. They were very much stronger in earlier times. So we're actually losing magnetic energy. And what is that? Now, that's, I think, the most important that you need to understand. We have negative ions. These are ions that are cosmic rays, they are earth magnetic fields, and they are excited or not. Now, the more the magnetic field is pulsing and vibrating, the more of those excited ions you have. Whereas if you have stale air, stale environment, static situations, then they lose their energy. And that is reflected in our cells. If we have a sedative lifestyle, our cells decrease, they get sick, they have an imbalance of positive and negative ions, and they really start to deteriorate in power. Whereas if we have a healthy outdoor fresh air circulating lifestyle, then our cells stay healthier. And that's pretty simple with those negative ions. Now, the most powerful negative ions are waterfalls, are ocean, big waves at the ocean, strong winds, because they excite those little molecules and they cause negative ionization. Now, Dr. Rao in our documentary said very simply, PEMF machines are ion shooters. They shoot huge amounts of ions into the space, into that circle around that loop, and through that create that extreme magnetic field. And that's what we perceive. As soon as we turn that machine on, we increase that power. And if we talk about power, I would just like to clarify, the Earth magnetic field is from 0.25 to 0.65 Gauss. And I'm old enough to use Gauss. They use now millitesla and nanotesla. That's too fine for me. Gauss was the original and I stick with it. So 60,000, as you can see, which is then 0.65 Gauss. And then it goes down to the low area, which we have now over South America with 0.25. That's the natural range of our universe. And it doesn't matter whether you stand on the ground or whether you are high up in the air or you're in an airplane, it still is always the same because the Earth is such a huge and massive magnet that there is no difference. But if we talk about those mats that we have, or loops or rings or anything, there is a formula, and the intensity of your field is the intensity of the mat divided by distance squared. And that pretty much makes a very simple calculation. So it's always squared. If I go 2 centimeters up, 2 times 2 is 4. So I divide my power that I have on the mat divided by 4. So if you go 2 centimeters away, we have from 0.35 Gauss, which is what those IMIs and beamers and everything do, we have already 0.08 Gauss. That's 2 centimeters away from the mat. Now we have 0.25 on the weakest area in the world. So that doesn't do anything. And then if you go further away, and let's say you're a little bit on the more corpulent side, then you have diameter. So to reach the middle, you need 20 centimeters. Thin people have that already automatically. So let's say you want 20 centimeters penetration. If you start out with 0.35 Gauss or 0.64 Gauss, it doesn't matter. You end up here in 20 centimeters with 0.0087. That's nothing. So instead of buying those low-level machines and multi-level marketing machines and, just rather lay in the grass, just go outdoors, walk through the forest, it's 10 times more effective, healthier, and if you take your shoes off and walk through the grass, you'll have triple the effect than from any of those machines. And believe me, a lot of people say, Marcus, you're judgmental, you just want to sell your machines. And let's face it, I can sell you anything. We have such a large database, I could list any device and could sell any device. There is no wholesaler or retailer that would not offer me their device. And I am happy to list them if we find them worthwhile. So we've been testing, and I have many machines that I sent back home. We did a lot of blood tests and checked before and after. We did under the microscope test before and after. And even the same company that sends us the big machine, the PMT, has a new machine which we tried out and we didn't have the results, so I stick with the old model. So I'm very dedicated to have results for you, and that's why we test and we check out. The only machine that fits close into that area is Mars, and they produce 100 Gauss which if you look 100 here is 25 Gauss, 2 centimeters, 11 Gauss, 3 centimeters, and comes up to 0.25 Gauss, 0.25, 20 centimeters. So I would say there is a therapeutic effect. But, and this is what we've noticed as well, if you send out your signal from a wave from an oscillating device, which all of those are, then that rings out, and for your cells to swing along and to have an effect, you lose a lot of energy. So, like Dr. Rao said, Dr. Dowdot said, Dr. Dowes said, Dr. Herzog said, all of them say, in a clinical environment, we don't use any of those mats. Even the 400 or 300 or 100 Gauss mats have no value for us because we need immediate results. And to have results, we need to go quite high in power so that the effects, and I'll talk about the effects next, are visible. That we actually have a therapeutic result by doing the treatment. And I think it's pretty obvious. If you have a tuning fork, if you have that vibrational energy send out into a cell and it hardly reaches the cell, and if it's so quiet and silent that the cell doesn't even respond, why should it have the effects? So that's my conclusion, that's my results, and also the observation after many, many years of working with those devices. If you work with what we call the ringer device, and that's what I would like to show you now, that's 39,000 Gauss. That's huge. That's like an explosion. And I think it's important to understand all your cells have different frequencies. So we have nerve cells. They respond to very low frequencies, 5, 6, 7 hertz. Then we have blood cells. That's rather around the 30, 23, 25 hertz. Then you have muscle cells. They are on the lower range again. Then you have fat that responds very, very late. It's actually 37 to 40 hertz. Then you have your gut intestinal. Then you have your... So all of those respond to different frequencies. Now, if you have all of those different frequencies, what would be the most effective way to make them all sing? A club. So you hit each of them at the same time, and all of a sudden, all your cells vibrate in full energy. And that's exactly what we try to achieve. And this is why the PMT is probably the most powerful medical device to get all cells activated at the same time. It's equally responsive for bone cells as for nerve cells, for blood cells, for white blood cell activation. And when you see, we had a lot of clients go through workshops, one treatment, and then they come back and say the next morning, wow, Marcus, it was phenomenal. I was sleeping like that. My pain was gone. And all the things that we'll talk about in the following slides will explain why. But this is very powerful. 39,000 Gauss is super powerful and has an immediate shock. Now those machines, and this is the 1000 Gauss machine, don't have that. So they, instead of hitting the bell, hitting the cell with a big wave, they actually start to sing. And I call them the sing-along device. So think about a tuning fork, and you hit the tuning fork, and then that sends out vibrations, and that's sound and magnetic waves, like we know, those waves that travel. Now, if you have a tuning fork which has the same resonance as this one, they start to sing along. Not quite as loud, but they start to sing along. So you put out here 1000 Gauss vibration in, let's say, here 7 hertz for bone, and you have bones here on this side, then they will start to sing along. They swing in the same frequency. But a ligament with 10 hertz or immune system or capillary formulation or stimulation of the immune system, they react to 15 or 20 hertz. So they won't even notice that frequency, the low frequency, maybe a little bit, but not a lot. So that's why these devices, they cannot be used just for 3 minutes to boom, activate. They have to be used for half an hour, and they will go through a sequence of frequencies. They start with low frequency, go into the next, go into the next, go into the next, and you will feel when you have a little magnet in your hand and you see the frequency every 3 minutes it changes and it goes into the next frequency stage. So they make your cells sing along. They have a lot less power, but therefore other advantages. And we'll talk about those advantages. They're not worse, they just do it differently. A lot more gentle, a lot more soothing, and they have some attributes which really make it worthwhile in regards to your mental condition and mind and sleep and pain regeneration than the Big Bang, which, has a mega healing effect, but it's less consumer friendly. You need a little bit more experience on how to treat certain diseases. All right. Now that's the two devices. We've covered that. We've covered strength, and we looked at the overall reasons how the world creates PEMF and how we can use that. So let's move on now to the next video where we talk about healing practices.